Yeah, no, it's like if you're not too bright, you lean in and you look purple. It's like so much.
Yes, that's because of the screen, I think. It's probably because it's so big.
Again, this is why I wish I was allowed to do manual corrections on this side. Because, like, unfortunately, because of the way things are working right now, I'm the only one who can see everything. Now, y'all can hear, but you can't see, and you honestly... You don't have any feedback on what's coming out on this end. It's like Bit's blissfully unaware that he's eyes only. He has no mouth.
No, I mean, that's on your system. My Skype window shows my whole thing.
Yeah, I know. It's because that's the other thing. I'm not allowed to like go, yes, I want this part of the frame. Ignore this part and that. I have to like take the middle, and I don't get a call, and I'm like this.
Alright.
Anyways, okay. Before we move on to the obvious topic at hand, in the big bouncing glowy iWorld, you have rehashing to do, Bit.
Okay.
Lead away. What? You had problems with the what was it? Was the Apple tracking, and there was one other thing.
That's the thing. Yeah. See, I think the whole word tracking it's not even part of the discussion. The thing is that the original post and bloggers who started the original news story had no idea what they were looking at, and they misnomered it as tracking when all it is basically a consumer-driven database to dictate basically where cell towers and public hotspots are.
One thing. There is an echo in your thing, like you're over loud or something. You're not over loud, but you're coming through like I have a feeling you're going to be incredibly choppy in the video.
Okay, well, I can try maybe. How's that?
That's much better. Whatever you did, that's good.
Okay. Basically, the tracking is a misnomer. It comes from the original news post that the people who look in basically understand what they were looking at and getting feedback. Great. Let's see. Hold on.
It's like we fix one problem and we get two others.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So that's why I think tracking is completely. I think all of this is unfounded. I'm actually upset about it because the way that people do things is that they're going to make a big stink about this, which is totally unfounded, and we're going to get
why do you think Congress is
tax or regulatory tax?
No, why do you think Congress is jumping on it? They're calling everybody down to D.C. next Tuesday. Yep. They're spending our taxpayer dollars that none of us have because the country's freaking broke to go, yes, are you using a computer?
And you call me conspiracy theorist, I think the carriers have something to do with this. Because what this does is that it helps the phone do more of the work than actually polling against the carrier to get basically where traffic can come from. So if the iPhone or Android phone, because Android does the same thing, BlackBerry does the same thing, WebOS, they all do the same thing. The only thing this time around is that the iPhone allowed a much larger file, which then you could say as a consumer, well, hey, they're eating up more of my
well, and the concern was, I think, not entirely unfounded. But this was a concern. I don't know if anybody remembers when you could do cell phone scanning in the '90s. Like
this has nothing to do with any of that. So people can be tracked using way different other methods.
No, I know. If people are concerned about their cell phone being tracked, I have some enlightening things for them that they will become paranoid. They'll start wearing.
Interesting, but think of this as a Wikipedia.
Yes.
Finding cell towers and hotspots.
Yeah, I know.
And how is Wikipedia built? By user submission. The same thing. Apple, Android, whomever can go and either hire a contractor to do this and pay them lots of money to find all the cell towers and Wi-Fi hotspots, or use us to do it. And I don't mind. I mean, hey, that's great. But I suspect the carriers are involved in this because carriers love for us to poll against them so that they can claim we're using too much of their bandwidth so that they can jack up their prices. Either way, I am praying that we do not end up paying more over this, because this will be an example of total bullcrap costing us more money for no reason.
Well, I have news for you. Phil's getting out of this one, but every American's going to wind up paying more, because we are paying the cost of this investigation, regardless if anything comes of it or not, which is going to increase the ultimate burden out of every tax-paying American's pocket, which is you and me, where we get to pay for this insanity.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I actually share your concern on the whole thing. Where I honestly think net neutrality is going is we're going to pass a piece of legislation that's going to do absolutely nothing to protect net neutrality. It's going to prop up the opolistic. I had to go look that word up, because they're not monopolistic. There are more than one company. They're opolistic tendencies of the whole telecoms industry, holding technology back a decade. It basically, we will add a federal level of red tape to the internet, which every American will have to pay for. It won't be as bad as the Great Firewall, but it might as well have the same result, because if I want to do something simple, like go start a TV or radio station today, the amount of bureaucratic bullshit I have to go through really does just make the cost of entry cost prohibitive for an average person. That's one of the great things about the internet right now. It levels the playing field. Almost anybody can come into it. If they add this bullshit layer on top of it, that is going to die overnight.
Look, I'm going to say this. In previous shows, we discussed that Google and everybody else, they need to really get together and build us a network that runs voice over IP or whatever quick. Because I'm about at it literally with the carriers. I'm so sick and tired of getting nickeled and dimed, and oh my goodness, you're 1 megabyte over, and these erroneous averages that you really don't use this many megabytes. And
well, but see,
and if you do, we're going to charge you another $50 for it. They can just all go to hell. So
and I'm actually for that in part, as long as it's done right. But it's the fact that we're having this investigation next week in D.C. is proof that nobody down there understands that. Because in their eyes, the telecoms are the good guys, and we need to okay AT&T buying T-Mobile so we can just get rid of more competition, because that's good for everybody. Competition's bad. We don't like that. And at the same time, they're sitting down here and putting the very people that you and I are kind of hoping shake up the system, and they're going, oh, microscope, evil, we hate Google, we hate Apple, we hate Microsoft, they called everybody. It's like people are obsessing on Apple, but they've called everybody. They're like, prove to us you're not the devil and we don't need to stop you.
Yeah. And well, here, check it out. Here's from Google, and I'll post this in the show notes so that you can
link to it for people.
Yeah, you can link to it. But let me go ahead and do that real quick for you. I just find this just so irritating. Here, I'll put it at the bottom there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like here we're planning to build and test ultra high-speed broadband networks in small number of trial locations across the United States. We'll deliver internet speeds more than 100 times faster than what most Americans have access to today, with 1 gigabit per second. Fiber to the phone connections. We plan to offer service at competitive price, at least 50,000 and potentially up to 500,000 people. Our goal is to experiment with the new ways to help make internet access better and faster for everyone. Here are some specific things that we have in mind. And they're going to go into next generation apps, deployment techniques, and openness and choice. So.
Well, no, and don't get me wrong.
I'm about at it with everything else.
Nobody here call me a Google fanboy, because I don't have blind trust in the almighty Google either. Google, I don't know if anybody saw that video Google put out about privacy. It's like we do privacy and security, and I was just like, this has nothing to do with whether you do or don't. This is trying to convince federal regulators that you don't want to come under, that you're not the bad guy. This is a PR video, nothing else. It's like...
I remember Google ran into some privacy issues just from an interview. It was a while back, and I think that video was in response maybe to that, because it was a big deal. Where, in so many words, it would say, well, you truly don't own the data. But I think it was misunderstood in that Google, Yahoo, and everyone else is actually ordered by federal law to store caches and IP addresses for a certain length of time.
No, but see...
Which is mandated by law so that the law enforcement can come in. You know?
Well, no, and I don't know how it works in your country, Phil, but the way it works here is the federal government says you have to do something that then makes private citizens paranoid because you're doing it, and then when the private citizens become concerned over it, the federal government drags you over the coals and said, see, private citizens, we protected you from the big bad guy. Vote me back in.
Well, I mean, you say as well from what you're saying is going to happen next week, and that, from my point of view, like it's not, a concern. Like, but the thing I'm waiting for is that the one group that does like to kick up a stink in the same way that we're linked to is the EU. And so I'm wondering now, with all the stink that's been going on about the tracking situation, are they going to start saying that that regulations need to come in, because then that could make life difficult for all the countries that are in the EU, which we're one of.
Well, and the fact that we're having this, like, and I'd be afraid of the EU too if I were you, in that this is even going on. Again, as I said last week, I really, really, really want to jump on this bandwagon and rake grapple over the coals, but I can't because there isn't a valid reason to. It's very clear that this is a reaction to John Q. Public overreacting to something that was overhyped, that really has no basis, and it's further evident that the people who are pulling the strings and investigating it have no idea what they're even talking about based on what they're trying to do. Is I'm like, are you dumber than John Q. Public and you're representing us? Really? It's like...
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's... the only thing that you could say that I give a little of credence to is that, sure, and the iTunes agreement, which is buried somewhere the heck in there, and it said, oh, can you volunteer for this? But, which means that they can use your phone to help build their network. But to me, it's like, I don't care. Yes, it has to be there by law to disclose it, but I consider that an enhancement of my service. In other words, so long as you're not having any form of privacy invasion, which it's not at all.
Well, no,
it's sort of like Microsoft asking me, we're not going to track anything about you or your IP or anything, but we want to see how you use SQL Server 2008 and automatically download errors or problems you may encounter, or maybe study user behavior. Which, okay, that's great. It's an easy way for companies to utilize us, which actually saves us money. Hopefully, in the end of it, they take those savings using us instead of hiring special groups and to watch things like that.
And this is one of the reasons that this is actually something that's lost on a lot of people. When you collect those data sets, even if you collect them anonymously, you have data sets with anonymized statistics. Even Google doesn't like the fact that they keep these data sets for the reason, because what has been proven time and time again, AOL is who proved this to. I want to say it's AOL, but it might have been NetZero or something. Back in the day, there was some ISP who was collecting all this data, and they anonymized it. But rather than doing what Google does and just putting up all these reports that are the outputted statistics from the anonymized collected statistics, they were just releasing the anonymized data sets for other people to go generate the statistics from. And what was found out was that even though they're anonymized, you can reverse engineer them back, and through the anonymized data sets, you can actually figure out who went to who when and actually reverse engineer that into tracking. You have to have the actual data sets. You have to get the data off of Apple, Google.
I would say
Well, no. But
that I would say is whoever built the way they collect data. I mean, because this is what it comes down to. Honestly, this is what it comes down to. It is impossible to say cell tower X is 150 miles from X location. Public Wi-Fi hotspot is this distance from X location. That doesn't reveal anything. There's no way you can reverse it, sidewind it.
Oh no!
Flip it upside down or anything. Now, if somebody tried doing data and used maybe the person's IP as a means of making an identity seed to make that record unique to others, then they're an idiot programmer for doing that. It's like Android. Everybody tried to jump on Android for saying Android has an ID number. Oh my gosh, look at this! And I jumped on that too. And I was like, look, it's a random identity seed. Anybody who knows anything about databases can use auto seeds and identity seeds, which is just something a database creates so it can preserve uniqueness across records.
I know. Well, and the concern is with improper access that this data can be used to do things. But again, this goes back to improper use. And honestly, again, I don't think there's any malice here. It's a concern of modern technology. But that's like saying, okay, I can't teach anybody about nitrogen because you can possibly use it to make a fertilizer bomb.
I mean.
A degree of healthy skepticism. Let's please not encourage rampant paranoia. They're very different things.
Yeah. But I did nonetheless enjoy the South Park episode. I thought that was quite entertaining.
Oh, the human centipede?
Yeah.
I know, and they have the perfect disclaimer in that, because their disclaimer says their content's not intended for anyone. So if Apple sues them, they can actually nail Apple on what they were making fun of, not reading the terms of service.
That's if Apple was going to go after.
If they're smart,
Apple's not going after anybody.
Yeah, if they're smart, and I think Apple is, this is just going to quietly die, and it'll be forgot about by the end of the month. Just like the funny bot Darlick.
Yeah, I highly doubt that Apple even cares. They're probably laughing themselves. But what's sad, I think, and that would go whether it's an Android phone or not, is that maybe more education has to take place. But I guarantee you, they can make an attempt to educate the consumer. But then again, the consumer's going to go, oh, I don't understand all that lingo. I don't really care. Don't worry about it. But then another month later, and something like this comes up again, uneducated consumers will start bitching.
Well, no, I'd say that's the thing. At the end of the day,
ridiculous, vicious cycle that it
at the end of the day, actually, before I say that, Phil, you were saying something a minute ago.
Yeah, and I think the reason why these things, at least this one definitely gets blown out of proportion is, I think, and obviously why Apple was the one who was the company that was kind of hauled over the coals over the issue, that brought the thing to the forefront, is that obviously I think people, even though they use Apple products, and Apple does make good products in some ways, but I think people do have a problem with Apple's closed system. So I think that the media, looks for anything where they can, and if they find something that looks incriminating, they then blow it up into a whole big thing, because they like to point out that Apple's closed system is bad. And the thing is then, as has happened, obviously, that it can get out of hand to where you can end up with laws and regulations being written that you don't want.
Well, no, that's the thing. I desperately want to jump on this because I'm one of these people. Oh, there's this little hole-sized chink in the armor. I think we should throw a grenade in there and see how it handles it. I really am one of those people.
But more regulation, I don't think so.
Yeah, but only when valid. And in this case, as much as I want it to be, it isn't valid. It's okay.
Well, let's put it this way. There's an easy way to explain it. Apple is an extremely polarizing company when it comes to the tech world or anything.
Yeah, you're either part of the cult or you're the enemy.
This halo type company. And any time that Apple can be nailed to the wall on something, it's ratings. It's gonna sell, and people make a mint just on opening a website with an article on it.
You're right. What am I doing? Apple is evil. Watch us.
Because it's going to attract a bunch of people.
Wait a minute.
Watch it.
You're right. What am I doing? Yes, Apple is the devil. They're tracking you. They're evil. They're what am I thinking? I'm actually.
It sells, man. I don't care. It sells. That's the way it is.